You think you know silence. I mean the real, deep, coastal silence of Big Sur. The kind that wraps around you like a weighted blanket, heavy with sea salt and the smell of ancient redwood. That's the silence I sought for our 5-year anniversary. That's the silence Clara insisted on. No cell service, no distractions, just two people celebrating a perfect life. I was wrong about the silence. I was wrong about the life. And I was catastrophically wrong about Clara. The moment it began wasn't dramatic. There was no slam door, no lipstick on a collar. It was purely administrative. I'm a security and tech consultant. It's what I do. And even on vacation, the habit is a reflex. A package was supposed to arrive, a rare vintage film lens I'd bought myself as a treat. The delivery notification was vague. I just wanted to verify the timestamp of the drop-off from the rental villa's system logs. It was a completely mundane technical inquiry. I accessed the private local network, pulling up the archive. I scrubbed through the time-stamped footage from the morning, about 4:17 a.m. Clara was supposed to be asleep. I know because I woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of the wind, and she was breathing softly beside me, her back to me. But at 4:17 a.m., there she was. She was already dressed. Not in the soft cotton pajamas she wore to bed, but in a silk robe, expensive, formal, standing in the villa's secluded study, a room we hadn't used. She moved with an unsettling, professional precision. She didn't look back at the master bedroom door. She didn't look like my wife. She looked like an operative. Her face, caught in the low-light infrared, was utterly cold. She wasn't worried or guilty. She was calculated. She pulled a leather-bound book from the shelf, a faux antique she'd bought as a decorative piece for the trip, saying it matched the aesthetic. It wasn't a book. The spine was a latch. Inside, resting perfectly, was a high-grade satellite phone and a small, proprietary NFC key. I watched her access a small, hidden wall panel. She ran the key over the sensor. And then, the true shock. She didn't dial a number. She held the phone and whispered 3 words into the receiver. Transfer confirmed. Mark. That single moment, frozen at 4:17 a.m., didn't just break my trust. It shattered my reality. 5 years. 5 years of what I genuinely believed was a partnership built on absolute transparency. Clara was my anchor. She was the one who pulled me out of the spreadsheets and the server rooms. I'd always been the detail guy, the paranoid one, the one who saw threats in data structures. She was the charm, the light, the real estate mogul who could sell a shack in a hurricane. She made me whole. We met at a tech conference of all places. I was presenting on encrypted data storage. She was networking for high-net-worth clients. She joked that I was the only man she knew who looked at her tax returns and saw poetry. We had the storybook life. The colonial home in the suburbs, the 2 golden retrievers, the plans for kids next year. Every decision, from the choice of tile in the bathroom to the name of my startup, CipherCore, a secure cloud storage solution, felt collaborative. The anniversary trip was meticulously planned by her. She spent weeks finding this villa. Ethan, she'd said, touching my face with that genuine, intoxicating warmth. We need to disconnect. No phone, no city, just the ocean and us. 5 years deserves a reset. Looking back now, I see the threads of manipulation everywhere. Her insistence on a remote location with limited access. Her obsessive protection of her accessories. For example, her photography hobby. She'd brought this vintage, leather-cased Mamiya camera. Beautiful thing. She spent hours out on the rocks, clicking away, claiming she wanted to capture the analog beauty of Big Sur. If I went near it, she'd snatch it up with a protective, almost violent energy, but always cover it with a laugh. Relax, tech boy, this isn't a drone. It's film. It's sacred. I believed her. I loved that passion. I loved her intensity. I backed out of the system logs and went back to the master bedroom. Clara was stirring, waking up slowly, beautifully, stretching like a cat. Morning, my love, she murmured. That soft, morning voice that was my favorite sound in the world. Morning, I replied, the lie catching in my throat like grit. I kissed her, tasting the metallic, sickening realization of what I knew. I tasted betrayal. I spent the next 6 hours in my mind's server room. I told her I had to take a long walk down the coastline to clear my head. I took my laptop, my specialized network interface cables, and a deep breath. I didn't trust the villa's cameras, but I trusted the network. I repulled the footage. This time, I didn't watch it as a husband. I watched it as Ethan, the security consultant. The first clue was the hand signal. When she accessed the hidden panel, she used her left hand to quickly touch her right earlobe twice. I zoomed in on the high-resolution infrared. There was a minuscule bulge behind her ear, an induction loop, a hidden earpiece. She wasn't talking on the satellite phone. She was using it as a secure relay, communicating with a secondary device or partner. The phrase, "Transfer confirmed. Mark." Mark. My business partner, Mark Sorensen, the man who handled the financial and regulatory side of CipherCore. Mark, the man who was supposed to be in Geneva this week closing our biggest funding round yet. My blood ran cold, not hot. It wasn't a jealous rage. It was the chilling, intellectual horror of seeing a beautiful, intricate fraud scheme unfold. This wasn't a fling. This was a hostile corporate takeover disguised as an anniversary trip. I checked the timestamp against her digital fingerprint. The transfer confirmation happened precisely 14 seconds after my company's quarterly stock options were scheduled to vest. I scrubbed further. Earlier footage, from 3:30 a.m. This is where the old camera came in. She returned from the rocks, looking exhausted but exhilarated. She took the Mamiya, and with practiced ease, she didn't open the film back. She opened the small, disguised housing on the grip. Inside was a tiny, custom-built encrypted SD card reader. She was using the analog camera as a secure physical vault to transport data. The whole trip was a meticulously orchestrated alibi. She ensured I had no access to the outside world, bought herself a critical 48-hour window of solitude, and created a fake scenario of romance while she and Mark executed a multi-million-dollar asset transfer designed to seize control of my entire life's work. They planned to leverage her position as my wife, use the forged stock option documents they had secretly prepared, and seize controlling interest while I was disconnected. The revelation hit me with the force of a technical DDoS attack. Complete system failure. My perfect marriage was a Trojan horse. The question was no longer if she betrayed me, but how I could expose the entire architecture of her deceit without her ever knowing I had seen the security footage. The game had changed. I was no longer a victim. I was a security consultant facing the most complex threat of his career. And the clock was ticking down to the anniversary dinner, the moment she'd expect me to be the most vulnerable. The worst part of being betrayed isn't the pain. It's the requirement to perform. For the next 24 hours, I lived a dual existence. I was Ethan, the hopelessly devoted husband, complimenting Clara's beauty, making small talk about the wine, and feigning exhaustion from the sea air. But underneath, I was an operative, running on pure, cold adrenaline, fueled by the intellectual insult of her hubris. I told her I needed to check on a critical server issue at my company, a necessary lie to explain the 12 hours I spent locked in the guest bathroom, my laptop humming, my face illuminated by the glow of code. I had to be certain. I couldn't accuse her based on 3 whispered words and a hand signal, not when my entire financial future, and possibly my freedom, given the scale of the financial crime, was at stake. My first breakthrough came when I examined the security camera's internal network packets. The system was supposed to be isolated, but as a tech consultant, I knew there was always a backdoor. I found a microburst of outbound data right after 4:17 a.m., encrypted and routed through a complex series of proxy servers. It was the data from her analog camera's SD card, uploaded via the satellite phone. I used a reverse-engineered key I had secretly built into CipherCore's architecture for emergency recovery. It was designed to bypass our own encryption in case of a server meltdown. I never thought I'd use it against my own wife. I found the shared file name, anniversary_final_2025.doc. Inside was the entire mechanism of the fraud. It wasn't a simple embezzlement. It was a sophisticated marriage fraud. Clara and Mark had used her high-end real estate dealings to launder small amounts of cash over the last year. But the real goal was CipherCore. They had documents prepared, a fake divorce filing, pre-signed by me, coupled with a manufactured agreement transferring my founder's stock options to an offshore holding company she controlled, arguing they were community property I was trying to conceal in the divorce. The whole thing was timed to the vesting date of the stock, which happened at midnight on our anniversary. The transfer confirmed was the final authorization, the legal and financial hammer drop, executed from the privacy of Big Sur where I couldn't stop it. I saw the dates, the forged signatures, the intricate web of offshore accounts named after constellations Hydra, Orion, Lyra. It was beautiful in its complexity and terrifying in its malice. The emotional collapse was internal. There were no tears, just a deep, resonating hollow in my chest. Every memory, the proposal, the wedding, the time she nursed me back from the flu, it all dissolved into a calculated lie. She hadn't loved me. She had simply been grooming the mark. The downfall wasn't losing her. It was losing the belief in the good in the world. I stopped being Ethan, the husband. I became Cypher, the protector of the network. My response had to be elegant, final, and untraceable. I wasn't going to shout or throw dishes. I was going to disarm the threat. First, I secured my defenses. I initiated a full server lockdown on CipherCore's main assets, overriding the transfer authorization, making it look like a system error on Mark's end. I sent a single, coded text message to my lawyer. Initiate phase Omega. Reference Lyra file. Delay execution 24 hours. This would ensure the legal counterattack began after I had my confrontation. The most critical step was the counterspy effort. I took her beloved vintage Mamiya camera. While she was taking a shower, I carefully dismantled the grip. I removed her encrypted SD card and replaced it with a custom-built card of my own, loaded with a Trojan file I'd written years ago called Project Siren. This file, when accessed, would instantly send me the live GPS coordinates and local Wi-Fi authentication logs of the device accessing it, then self-delete. I needed to know who she was meeting and where. Then, I focused on her weakness, her real estate career. Clara was expecting a massive commission, almost $3 million, from a high-profile commercial deal that closed 2 days ago. That money was scheduled to hit her personal accounts the following morning, the day after the anniversary, before she executed the final phase of the fraud. This was her operating capital for the long, legal battle she expected. Using my access as a top security consultant, I didn't steal the money. I engineered a financial block. I alerted the title company, anonymously, to a potential conflict of interest regarding escrow funds based on a fake, decade-old lawsuit I cooked up in minutes. The money was frozen, pending judicial review, a process that would take 6 months. It looked like an outside attack. I had effectively cut off her air supply. The setting for my justice? Our anniversary dinner. The villa's dining room was prepared. Candles, a view of the crashing Pacific, a bottle of her favorite rare Italian wine. She wore the dress she'd worn on our first date, a powerful symbol of emotional connection she was using as a shield. We toasted. The tension was suffocating, but only to me. She was glowing, believing she had won. She raised her glass. To 5 years, Ethan. To a beautiful future. I raised mine. I smiled wider than I ever had, and my voice was calm, almost soothing. This was the pinnacle of dramatic irony. To 5 years, I echoed. And to the architecture of our love, Clara. The way everything eventually reveals its source code. I took a slow sip of the wine, watching her face. I saw a flicker of confusion, a tiny, almost imperceptible tightening around her eyes. She hadn't processed the word source code. Not yet, but the timer had started. The trap was set. The perfect night was about to become the perfect downfall. The anniversary dinner was designed to be her victory lap. It became the stage for her execution. Not physical, but existential. I wanted her to realize, in excruciating detail, that she had gone up against a professional and lost everything she cherished, including her belief in her own cunning. She tried to redirect the conversation. You seem preoccupied, Ethan. Did the work emergency go poorly? I put my glass down. I looked her in the eye, and for the first time in 5 years, I saw her, not the projection she created. The work emergency went perfectly, Clara. It was a systems failure, a Trojan embedded years ago that finally had to be deactivated. The anomaly was an outbound data burst from this house at 4:17 a.m. this morning. The data included a file named anniversary_final_2025.doc. Her composure, her most prized asset, cracked. Her hand flew to her throat. She tried to deny it, but the denial was weak. A technical glitch in her otherwise perfect facade. I don't know what you're talking about, Ethan. You're being paranoid. Paranoid? Maybe. Prepared? Absolutely. I pulled a small, laminated printout from my inner jacket pocket. A copy of the locked transfer log showing the $3 million commission she was expecting had been legally intercepted. Your commission on the Alta Vista deal is gone, Clara. It hasn't been stolen. It's been rerouted. As of 5 minutes ago, that entire sum was transferred to the Women's Financial Literacy Fund, registered under your mother's maiden name. You can't touch it. It's a tax-deductible donation in your honor. The cruelty was in the honor. I had not only removed her financial leverage, but I had made her appear as a philanthropist, a clean, moral character she was not. I hadn't taken her money. I had used it to sculpt a final, unbearable lie for her own reputation. She screamed then, a raw, animal sound of pure, financial terror. You can't do this. That was my life. Mark and I, we needed that capital. Mark, I said, leaning back in my chair. Yes, Mark. You confirmed the transfer to Mark at 4:17 a.m. using the satellite phone hidden in the antique book, communicating via the induction loop earpiece. I saw the footage, Clara. All of it. I then played my final card, the karma twist. Funny thing about Mark, I continued, my voice conversational. He activated my Project Siren Trojan when he accessed the data on your SD card 20 minutes ago. The GPS coordinates show he is currently at the Santa Cruz County Courthouse, initiating his own corporate lawsuit against you, claiming he was the sole architect of the fraud, and that you merely acted as his accomplice to sign off on the CipherCore options. Clara stared at me, her eyes wide, tears finally falling. But they were tears of rage, not sadness. He used the coordinates? The SD card I gave him? He double-crossed you first, Clara. He knew the $3 million would hit your account tomorrow, so he timed his lawsuit to freeze your assets before you even had them. You were playing checkers, he was playing a three-dimensional game. And I finished, picking up a napkin. I was just observing the network traffic. Then, the final humiliation. 2 county sheriffs, acting on an anonymous tip about a suspicious high-value person meeting at this remote address, arrived, looking for Mark Sorensen, who was now wanted for questioning regarding the sudden, massive transfer out of a foundation Mark managed. Clara's attempt to call Mark instantly failed, as I had initiated a digital block on her satellite phone. I left Big Sur the next morning, leaving Clara to deal with the police and the realization that her life was now meticulously and legally untangled from mine. I didn't need a divorce lawyer. I needed an emergency system wipe. I didn't take a single photo. I didn't need to. I had the footage. Back in my own home, weeks later, the silence is real now. Heavy. I sit at my desk, looking at the server where the copy of the Big Sur security footage is still housed. It's a 1-minute loop of Clara, cold and professional, confirming the transfer that was meant to ruin me. I dragged the file to the trash. I don't need to keep the proof. The truth is already encrypted in my soul. I was a man whose entire career was dedicated to protecting data from external threats, from sophisticated, unseen attacks. I never once considered that the most critical vulnerability, the real backdoor, was located right next to me, breathing softly under my covers. I found out the truth because of my job. I only knew her secret life because of my own paranoia. The moral of this story isn't about revenge. It's about the ultimate security flaw, trust. Once you open that port, there is no firewall strong enough to protect you from what walks through. I lost my wife, but I gained an irrefutable, terrifying truth. Love is the exploit. Marriage is the administrative password. And I will never, ever log in again.